Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge, day number 9. We're at the end, but don't fret because we do have another Daily Creative Challenge kicking off just next week. But hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Happy Friday. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe. And a big good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone joining me live here on Behance, including Tim, who's asking me how I'm feeling. I'm feeling much better today, thank you. And Kara and Jan Eric, probably, maybe, I don't know. I never knew how to pronounce your name. Adula and Melville, and who else do we have here? And Majid, welcome everyone. We've got Jim in the house over here, taking over for Paco today. Got Paul Tranny, who kicked off the Photoshop Masterclass. He's over there doing his thing. You just finished watching Jason Levine with his premiere after class? No, it's a master class. Could be called an after class, I don't know. I'm here with the Daily Creative Challenge, and then right after that, I've got my master class for XD. So it's a good day, a lot of cool stuff going on. Hey, Justin, welcome, and Richard. It's pronounced Jan Eric. Okay, good to know. All right, so Daily Creative Challenge, day number 9. Here we are, wrapping things up. Next week, Jesse Showalter is going to be in the house hosting the next set of challenges, which is going to be super exciting. So let me break things down for you if you're brand new to this thing. If you are brand new, Paul's making noises over there. Hit the big blue register button at the top so you're notified when we do release new challenges every single day, Monday to Friday, except next week. It's a holiday on Monday, so we're not going to be here. We're going to be relaxing at home, and you're going to receive a new challenge. You can join us in our community chat, which is on Discord. Let me go ahead and launch that to show you what the deal is there, but we have about 32,000 designers signed up to our Discord channel, which is incredible. You can jump in there, introduce yourself, ask questions, and more importantly, you can share your work in the current challenge, past challenge section. If you're working on completely unrelated things, you can share it in the other section. It's a good time, so just jump in there, have a fun time, connect with other designers, and you can also use co-editing if you connect with designers to work alongside each other, which is fun. So let's do a quick recap. Last Tuesday, we started off with repeat grids. We moved on to auto animate, the drag trigger, plugins, component states, voice triggers, hover triggers, which is always fun, advanced prototyping, and today we're gonna be tackling masking, and we're gonna kind of combine a lot of the things that we've learned in the past challenges into today's challenge, and we're going to use mask to design a really fun, interesting experience. So without further ado, let's hop over to Adobe XD. Boop, there we go. And here is the challenge for today. Design a meal donation experience for a food delivery mobile app. Give your design a bespoke look. I don't know what that means. I didn't write that. It probably means something fancy. With advanced masking techniques. And we're gonna be focusing on using component states and masks to allow you to achieve some pretty fun results, including advanced pop-out cards. So as always, we're gonna just dive in here. We're gonna start laying things out on our artboard, and I'm going to leave it a little bit vague so you can take your creativity and make it something really cool. And if anyone has questions throughout the stream, definitely throw them in the chat. And if I can't answer them now, I'll do my best to answer them in the next stream for my masterclass. All right, so let's get started. What I'm gonna do is, let's start by just dragging out a rectangle to house a lot of our elements. As if you've been with me through these challenges, you know I'm on this rectangle with rounded corners kick. I don't know why, but they look pretty good. I'll make it 32 pixels. Of course, I don't want them on the bottom, so I'm gonna hold down Alt-Option and just drag out these corners back, just like that. Fancy. Now maybe for the background of this artboard, even though it's not going to be seen a lot, we may want a little bit of a gradient. So I'm going to open up my fill and set from solid color to linear gradient. And maybe I'll go for like a nice light blue up at the top with a little bit of green in there. That looks pretty good. And for the bottom gradient, bottom color, even though we're not going to see it very much, we can always pull up this little handle to see a little bit more of it. But you don't want to go here because then it's a very harsh gradient. It goes from one color to another very quickly. You probably don't want to do that. You can pull it down just a little bit to stretch it out. And I'll just drop this. There we go. That looks pretty good. It's a nice looking gradient. Perfect. So we've got a rectangle, we've got our gradient in the background, and now we may want to start adding some elements that are going to help with our component and states, which we're going to design shortly. So maybe at the top, just to kind of block together this food delivery, food donation app, I'm gonna grab an ellipse and just draw one out just like this. And just to make sure that everything is lined up really nicely, I may want to drag out some guides. So maybe on the left, I'm gonna draw one out, let's say 32 pixels from the left, and then 32 pixels from the right. That way, when I am drawing these elements out, I can just snap them really nicely into place. And I'm going to leave this rectangle or ellipse, whatever it's called, just gray for now. We can always put images in there later on, but we want to get to the good stuff. So I'm just gonna, add some elements, repeat grid, and drag some out. I'm gonna leave one of them kind of hanging off the artboard, so it gives users the impression that they can, in fact, drag over to the other side. Perfect. All right, now down below, we may want a large card that maybe showcases one of the items in this category, or it's a featured category, whatever it might be. So I'm gonna grab my rectangle tool, making sure my guides are showing, and I'm just gonna draw one out just like this. Maybe I'll round out these corners a touch. I don't wanna go too crazy. Maybe 32, possibly. We'll keep it at 32, see what that looks like, right? And of course, we need an image. And I know Jack, I did see Jack in the chat, and we're gonna go with donuts today, because who doesn't love some donuts? So I'm gonna grab this image of a donut, drag it in. This donut has blueberries on it. I've never had a donut with actual blueberries on it. If you have, let me know in the chat. But I'm gonna just increase the size a little bit, move it up, just to kind of position into place. That looks pretty good. And I may want to, just in case someone doesn't know what a donut is, I may want some text that explains what this is. So I'm gonna grab my text tool, shortcut key T, and just, let's say, type out donut desires. Maybe I'll go back to Poppins. I know some of you give me a hard time for using Poppins, but it's a good font. Let's go for extra bold, change it to white, make it a little bit larger, and I'll just adjust the line spacing just a touch. Perfect. All right. So we've essentially have our card going on, but of course, when this card in specific pops out, it's gonna have a lot more information. We need to, show a few additional items that you can order. We might need a button or two. We might want to expand that image so it kind of fills up the screen. So what we're gonna start to do is build out some of that stuff, and then we're gonna mask a lot of it inside this card so it's not visible immediately. So down below, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my ellipse tool one more time and draw out one more ellipse, just like that. And this is gonna be an additional item that you'll be able to add to your cart. So I'll just set the fill to gray for now, just so I can see it. Maybe below or to the side, I'll just type out donut. It's probably a little bit too thick, so I'll just drop it down to maybe semi-bold possibly. And then I'll definitely want to drop the size, just so we have a nice amount of room over to the right, so we can put additional items or additional, interactions. And speaking of additional interactions, one thing we may want is some sort of a ticker that allows you to add more or less to your cart. So to do that, we're gonna grab our rectangle, draw one out just like this. That looks beautiful. We may want to round out the corners just to kind of keep consistency with the rest of the application, but you obviously don't want to do it too much because then it's like super round. So maybe 4 pixels, just a very subtle rounded corner. We'll go for a nice gray, and then a very subtle border on the inside just to separate it from the background to make sure accessibility all matches up. And if anyone is concerned about accessibility, the Stark plugin is fantastic. So definitely, I would encourage you to use that. Now in the center, we'll go for the number 1. That looks pretty good. Maybe over to the right, we'll have a plus button. And then over to the left, make sure everything lines up, we'll have a minus button. Beautiful. All right. Things are looking a little bit too large, so I'm gonna just select these, drop them down just a touch. That looks pretty good. And maybe, maybe I'll just drop the opacity a little bit on these. And then the one on the far left, because you can't go, you can go less than 1, but we'll just go for, let's say, maybe we'll start this at 0, right? There we go, perfect. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now that we've got all of these elements within this card or entry, we may want to turn this into a repeat grid. And we've done this in the past. We actually did this on day number 2. So I'm going to select all these elements. I'm going to first make sure to group these just so it's a little bit easier to select. add, subtract. Got all my elements selected, and then we're gonna simply hit the repeat grid button at the top right. Boop, there we go. And we can drag out, let's say we'll drag out 3 more down this artboard. Beautiful. All right, so things are looking pretty good. We may also want some text right up here that just says your order, right? Make it a little bit large. And then when the card does pop out, we may need a way to close the card because it's essentially going to take up the entire application's interface. So over to the right, before we start masking some stuff, you may want to drag out a little circle, pop it on the right here, make sure everything lines up, and those smart guides definitely help throughout the process. Set the fill to a nice gray color. Let me zoom in here so we can see what we're working with. And then I'll just grab my text tool and I'm going to, let's say, type an X, right? Maybe I'll go for Sophia Pro Soft. It's a good font. And then just drop the opacity a little bit, just so we have an X that allows users to close. You'll probably create an X also with your pen tool or a bunch of lines, but you know what? The text tool will work. I'll make sure to group these, and this is going to be called close. Perfect. All right, the last thing I want to do, and this is going to be a little bit weird right now, but I want to add an additional rectangle in the background behind these elements, but in front of the rectangle back here, and also right above the donut layer. It's probably not making any sense, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer in the background, right? Just like this, and you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. And I'm going to bring this down. Let me change the color just for a second so you can see what we're working with. Now obviously that's pretty ugly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it's above. I want to make sure that this layer here, right, and the donuts, I'm going to group this and just call this header image. I want to make sure that this is below that rectangle. And you're going to see why. We're basically going to have this new rectangle kind of go on top of it to kind of give an interesting effect. Again, very difficult to kind of explain, but when I do it, you're gonna hopefully notice what's going on. So I'm gonna change this back to white so we cannot see it. All right, so we've got pretty much all of our elements. We will add a few more here and there, but we have the elements we want to use in this interaction. But of course, we don't want all of this to be displayed immediately. So what we need to do is we need to create a mask. And to do that very simply, I'm actually going to grab the shape of the image. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right at the top of my layer stack. Now, with this in place, we will not be able to use it by default to create a mask. And I'm going to show you why in a second. So if I go ahead and let me actually move this down, I can just name this categories, and I'll also name this one donuts. If I were to select this shape here, right, this shape with the image, select all of these, all the elements that I want inside of that mask, go up to the object menu, you're gonna notice that mask with shape is not available. And you might be asking, what's going on? Why can I not do that? It's because that shape is already being used as a mask for the image that you've placed within it. So if that's the case, if you do have an image selected, all you have to do is just change the fill to literally any color that you want. I'll just choose a red. And now when I do this, object mask with shape is now available. So when I select that, it's essentially going to take everything that was outside of the bounds of that shape and mask it. So anything that is within the bounds is going to be visible. Anything that is outside of those bounds, you will not be able to see. And we now have something that looks like this, which is really nice. But of course, we may want to get fancy with this. We may want to create a single artboard interaction. And to do that, let me go ahead and name this donut, featured donut maybe, right? And to do that, we need to create a component. We could do this on 2 artboards, but because we're a little bit further along in the challenges, we're going to create a component with states. So over to the right, we're gonna press the plus button right over here, boop. And now we have a component with a default state. Of course, if we want to create an interaction, we need to create an additional state. And to do that, you press the exact same plus button, just like that, press new state. I'm gonna call this, let's say, expanded, right? And now that the expanded state is selected, what we have to do is we have to dive into that. Now, one mistake some people make is they just grab the entire component from the parent level and just start pulling and pulling and pushing and trying to enlarge it that way. But instead, you have to actually go into the state. So I'm going to dive in here, make sure I have the mask layer selected, and I'm just going to enlarge the entire mask across the entire width and height of my application. I can also unround those corners. That way, everything can be seen. So now that that's done, we can start rearranging some of the elements within this state so that it expands and shows everything that we need it to see. So I'm gonna grab the header image, maybe move it up to the top, expand it across like that. That looks pretty good. Grab the text. Now I'm also gonna grab that rectangle that I created earlier and just move that up a little bit. And you're noticing what's happening now. We now have this interesting effect where it'll look like that, this rectangle that was once in the background is now on top of the image. So it gives this interesting sense of depth. I can dive in here, move the text a little bit. I can adjust the mask if I wanted to, right? Beautiful. I can move some of this stuff up. Your orders, I'll move up here. I'll move this up. Also move the button up so you can close it. And there we go. Perfect. So that's looking pretty good. Now, how do we actually interact with this thing? Well, if you go back to the default state, here's state 1, and then here's state 2. So you can toggle back and forth to see which one, depending on if you want to show them on different screens, you can just show one, the second state on one screen, the first state on the other screen. But of course, you may want to actually interact with it and have auto animate do the trick. Richard's saying, can we see mask with shape come to XD in the near future? Mask with shape, not sure what you mean, but you can create mask with shape just like I showed with pretty much any shape you can use as a mask as long as it does not have an image. So what we have is we have the default state selected. If we go into prototype mode, what we want to do instead of dragging this handle to another artboard, we simply want to click on it and it's going to spout out this little wire. And then over to the right, we want to choose a tap trigger because we do want users to tap on this card to expand it. And now instead of choosing transition to go to another artboard, we're going to choose auto animate. We can choose a destination. In this case, we do want to choose the expanded state. And I'm going to choose ease in and out. And we'll do, let's say 0.6 seconds for now. We'll see what that looks like. Now we can go to the expanded state and choose what we want a user to tap on if they want to close it. So in this case, we're going to dive in here, select the close icon just like that, and do the exact same process. So we're going to tap on the close icon, we're going to choose the default state, and that's it. All the other properties are maintained from the last interaction. So what we're going to do, we're going to hop back to our default state. We're going to press the play button at the top, which I'm running into that same bug as yesterday. I wonder if it's because we're connected to an external monitor. That could be it. But if I can press Command and Control and then return, that'll launch my prototype. And now when I tap on this, everything's going to expand really nicely. And when I tap on it again, it's going to close, right? And of course I can dive in here and make some changes if I wanted to. I may want to maybe move this up a little bit. Maybe I want to expand this, make it a little bit larger. Now that I'm seeing everything in action, right? Whoop, whoop, just like that. And of course you can go to your default state and make some changes there as well. Or you can also, add buttons and things like that. So let's go ahead and go to our expanded state, right? Drag out a button. Maybe I'll round out the corners just a little bit, nothing too crazy, maybe 16 pixels. I may want to sample one of the colors up here. Make this a little bit thicker. And this will essentially be the checkout button. So we're gonna just type in, let's say, get in my belly. There we go. Set the color to white. Let's go back to Poppins. We all love Poppins, right? Perfect. Now we have a button. And again, you can also convert this into a group. You can convert it into a component, whatever you want. I do want to copy it and make sure it's inside of this mask, just like this. Now, if I were to just do it like that, you're going to notice if I go back to my default state and expand this, that button is not there. So what I want to do is make sure to paste this inside of my default state as well. I can move it down here at the bottom. And now we have it. Whoops, we have two of them. We don't need two of them. There we go. We now have one over here. What did I do? I broke something. I should have probably created it inside of my default state first. I broke it. There we go. Okay. Default state. Let's just go ahead and paste that in there. Move it down a little bit. Move this up because I broke it again. And then pop this into place. Beautiful. Let's take a look. Where'd my close button go? I'm just breaking everything today. I don't know what I'm doing. Things are breaking. XD's freaking out. But anyways, you get the idea, right? So you can add new elements, you can subtract elements. Hopefully things don't break on you. Nobody saw that, right? All right, so let's take a look at what we did one more time. We've got our expanded state, we've got our closed state, and then of course you can add some additional elements. You can scroll back and forth at the top if you wanted to with drag triggers to another artboard. You can add more masks down below. So if I go back to my default state, I can duplicate this downwards, right? And let's say I want to add a different donut in there. So I can dive in here. Let's go for, or a different food completely. Let's go for this, what do we got here? We got some juice. Bam, right? Drop that in there. Name this featured juice. Why not, right? Howard is using the beta again. I'm not actually, am I? No, I'm not. Made me think twice, Tim. We can go to our text, which is, here's our text right there. And juice. That's not a juice, that's a smoothie, but whatever. We're gonna run with juice, right? So now things are kind of looking a little bit better. We've got this expanded state here. And of course you have a state down here, which you would have to alter and make sure the images are up to date and all that fun stuff. But you know, there's a lot you can do with this. So before we wrap things up, I do want to hop back over to Discord and I want to just kind of browse through some of the challenges. I'm just going to scroll all the way to the current feedback section and let's just take a look at it. So that was some feedback. So here we go. So Aaron is posting very quickly. This one is the challenge. Which one is it? Challenge number 8. And I love when, you know, designers put some sort of like a design system at the top where they showcase fonts, they showcase colors and things like that. And this one's looking really good. You've got the rounded rectangles at the top, looking fancy. Nice job. We also have Create with Court. She put this together. I don't remember which day. This was day 4. Make this a little bit larger. There we go. Very clean, great colors. Looks like it'll probably pass accessibility. Wish I can zoom in, but it looks like, oh, I can open original. Here we go. And I just got a notification that my flight has been canceled. This is fun. All right, yeah, this is looking pretty good. Now let's take a look at 1 or 2 more. We've got some feedback here. What else do we have? Here we go. This is from Praveen. Again, really nice colors. I love the greens, I love the blues. Very flat, very minimalistic. That looks good. Auto animate. Oh, so he's putting a bunch of them inside of a single project, which is really nice. Yeah, these are looking really clean. I would say if you want some inspiration on some of these challenges, definitely go to Praveen's Behance profile and take a look at some of this stuff. Voice trigger, looking good. All right, let's go for 1 more over here. Let me make this a little bit larger so we can see what's going on. Temperature, we've got some auto animate going on, very nice. I would say there's a little bit of transition going on there. When you're working with auto animate, I would say probably try to avoid that and try not to have overlapping elements that aren't on additional artboards. That's probably what's causing some of those, you know, dissolve transition issues. But that's gonna just about wrap things up for this daily creative challenge. Day number 9. Jesse Showalter will be back on Tuesday, kicking off the next set of challenges. And I'm gonna be back in like 5 or 6 minutes with an XD masterclass. I'm gonna also figure out what happened with my flight, but I'll see you all very soon. Thanks for watching.